The giant cargo ship Vanguard. 12 traveled slowly through the dark emptiness of space. Around the ship, endless stars burned quietly like cold lights in the black sky. The mission was simple: deliver supplies to the mining colonies near the edge of the galaxy. But inside the ship, nothing ever felt simple. The crew of Vanguard, 12, came from many different worlds. Tall aliens with blue skin worked beside insect-like engineers. Small gray scientists walked through the halls carrying glowing tablets. Some species spoke with sounds. Others communicated through lights or body movement. And then there were the humans. Most alien crews still did not fully trust humans. Humans were new to galactic space. Loud, emotional, unpredictable, and worst of all, humans ate terrifying things. Lieutenant Ethan Cole did not care what the aliens thought. After 12 long hours repairing broken cargo engines, he only wanted one thing: food, real food, not the tasteless nutrition cubes served by the ship cafeteria. So during the night cycle, Ethan walked into the empty cafeteria carrying a small metal lunchbox. The old box had scratches and dents all over it. His grandmother had given it to him before he left Earth. Never trust space food, she had told him. Ethan smiled slightly as he sat down alone near the far corner of the room. The cafeteria was quiet. Only a few aliens sat near the walls eating carefully measured meals from sealed containers. Ethan opened the lunchbox. Immediately, the smell escaped into the air. Hot meat, fresh bread, garlic sauce, black pepper, fried onions. The reaction was instant. A nearby alien suddenly choked on his drink. Another looked around in panic. One insect-like worker stood up so quickly that his chair crashed backward onto the floor. Ethan blinked. What? The smell spread farther through the room. Now every alien face had turned toward him. Fear filled their eyes. One gray-skinned scientist quickly covered the breathing vents on his neck. A blue female officer whispered nervously, "That odor impossible." Ethan looked down at his sandwich. "It's just roast beef." Then he took a bite. That was the exact moment the entire ship went insane. Red emergency lights exploded across the cafeteria ceiling. "Warning!" A robotic voice shouted through hidden speakers. "Biological hazard detected." Heavy steel doors slammed shut around the room. Several aliens screamed. Emergency alarms echoed through the cafeteria like a war siren. Ethan nearly dropped his sandwich. "Oh, come on." Yellow lights flashed across the walls while air vents released cold white mist into the room. Contamination level rising. Aliens rushed away from Ethan as fast as possible. Some climbed onto tables to escape the spreading smell. Others pulled emergency masks over their faces. One alien pointed directly at Ethan. The human released it. "It's airborne. We are all going to die." Ethan stood up slowly with both hands raised. "Guys, relax. It's only lunch." Nobody listened. The cafeteria doors suddenly opened again. Armed security guards stormed inside. At the center of the group walked Commander Vex Tal, head of security for Vanguard 12. He was over 7 feet tall, covered in dark armor, with glowing yellow eyes and gray stone-like skin. Most crew members feared him more than space pirates. Tonight, however, even Vex Tal looked nervous. The commander stopped several feet away from Ethan's table. His eyes locked onto the sandwich. For a long moment, nobody spoke. And maybe humanity was far more dangerous than anyone ever imagined. The quarantine alarms finally stopped 3 hours later. But nobody on Vanguard 12 felt calm. News traveled fast across the ship. The human had released dangerous biological material inside the cafeteria. Some crew members claimed the food melted scanner equipment. Others believed humans secretly trained themselves to survive poison. By morning cycle, wild rumors had spread through every deck. Humans eat acid. Humans consume living bacteria. Humans enjoy chemical pain. One mechanic even whispered that humans probably had 2 stomachs made of metal inside the medical quarantine chamber. Ethan Cole sat on his bed, looking completely exhausted. "I should have eaten the nutrition cubes," he muttered. The glass doors suddenly opened. Commander Vex Tal entered slowly with 2 armed guards behind him. Ethan looked up. "Let me guess," he said. "Now bread is considered a weapon too?" The commander ignored the joke. Instead, he placed a sealed metal container on the table. Inside the container sat Ethan's sandwich. Untouched, Vex crossed his arms. Our scientists have reached no conclusion. Ethan smirked slightly. Because it's food. Because it should not exist, Vex corrected. The commander activated a holographic screen above the table. Several chemical symbols immediately appeared in the air. Our scanners detected oils, acids, bacteria, proteins, fermentation agents, fungal particles, and heat-altered compounds. Ethan blinked. Yeah, that's called cooking. Vex stared at him carefully. Human Ethan Cole, why would your species willingly combine dangerous substances together? Ethan leaned back. Because it tastes good. The guard behind Vex looked disturbed. One quietly whispered, Savages? Ethan laughed. You guys eat flavorless gray cubes every day. They are nutritionally balanced. The guard replied proudly. They taste like melted cardboard. The guard looked confused. What is cardboard? Ethan sighed. Never mind. Commander Vex suddenly touched the control panel on the container. The sandwich slowly rose upward behind protective glass. We will perform one final experiment. Ethan narrowed his eyes. What kind of experiment? Vex looked serious. We will test whether your food is truly safe. Ethan almost smiled. Finally, the commander pressed another button. A small cleaning drone floated into the room. The tiny machine moved toward the sandwich carefully. Dr. Sira's nervous voice suddenly echoed through the speakers. Commander, are you certain this is wise? We need answers, Vex replied. The drone cut a microscopic piece from the sandwich. Instantly, warning alarms flashed across the screen. Chemical overload detected. The drone froze in midair. Smoke slowly rose from its body. Then the machine dropped dead onto the floor. Silence filled the room. One guard stepped backward in fear. Dr. Sira gasped through the speaker. The drone's internal systems collapsed. Ethan stared at the broken machine. Oh, come on. That drone was already old. Nobody agreed with him. Commander Vex slowly turned toward Ethan. The food destroyed military equipment. It destroyed cheap cafeteria equipment. The commander ignored the correction. Outside the chamber, several scientists panicked openly. We must alert Galactic Health Command. This species cannot be allowed near civilian populations. What if humans weaponize cooking? Ethan buried his face in his hands. This is insane. But then something unexpected happened. A young alien worker suddenly entered the medical lab outside the chamber. He looked nervous, very nervous. Commander Vex immediately noticed him. You should not be here. The young alien swallowed hard. I volunteered. The room became silent. Dr. Sira stared at him in shock. You volunteer for what? The young alien pointed toward the sandwich. To taste it. Everybody froze. One scientist nearly screamed. You will die. The worker looked embarrassed. But the smell is interesting. Ethan finally smiled. At least someone here has courage. Commander Vex studied the young alien carefully. Name. Technician Rel. You understand the risks? Rel nodded slowly. Yes, Commander. Dr. Sira looked horrified. This breaks at least 17 safety laws. But Commander Vex raised one hand. No species could be understood through fear alone. Then he turned toward Ethan. You will supervise. 10 minutes later, the entire medical wing gathered behind thick glass walls. It looked less like a food test and more like an execution. Technician Rel sat nervously at a small table. In front of him rested the smallest piece of sandwich imaginable. Ethan stood nearby with crossed arms. You know, Ethan said calmly, on Earth we call this a snack. Nobody laughed. Commander Vex spoke through the intercom. Begin the test. Rel slowly picked up the sandwich piece with shaking fingers. The smell reached him immediately. His eyes widened. That aroma... Ethan grinned. Good, right? Rel hesitated. Then finally, he took one bite. The entire room held its breath. Rel chewed slowly. His face showed confusion first, then surprise, then something nobody expected. Joy. Pure joy. The alien's eyes suddenly became huge. His body froze completely. Commander Vex stepped forward immediately. "What is happening?" Rel swallowed hard. Then he looked up with tears in his eyes. "It's amazing." Silence. Nobody moved. Rel grabbed the rest of the sandwich piece and stuffed it into his mouth before anyone could stop him. Dr. Sura gasped loudly. "Technician Rel!" Rel ignored her completely. "This is the greatest thing I have ever tasted." Shock spread across the medical wing. One scientist whispered weakly, "The human poisoned his brain." But Rel suddenly stood up excitedly. "The bread is soft. The meat is rich. The spices burn in comfort at the same time." Ethan smiled proudly. "Welcome to Earth cuisine." Then disaster struck again. Warning lights exploded across the medical scanners. Unknown biological reaction detected. Rel's body temperature rose rapidly. His heartbeat doubled. Several scientists panicked instantly. "He's dying." Medical team moved now. But Rel was not dying. He was laughing. Actually laughing. Alien species rarely laughed. Most could not even understand humor. Yet Rel sat there smiling uncontrollably. "I feel incredible." Commander Vex stared in disbelief. Dr. Sura checked the scanner again and again. "This makes no sense." Ethan folded his arms proudly. First time eating real food changes people. Then Rel suddenly looked directly at Commander Vex. "Commander?" "Yes." Rel pointed toward the sandwich container. "Can I have more?" The entire room fell silent once again. Commander Vex slowly turned toward Ethan. For the first time since this nightmare began, the commander no longer looked afraid of human food. Now, he looked worried about something else. What would happen if the entire galaxy discovered humans could make food this addictive? And far away, hidden inside the upper decks of Vanguard 12, someone quietly watched the medical reports appear on a secret screen. A shadowy figure leaned closer, then slowly smiled. Because if human food truly affected alien biology this strongly, it could become the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The news spread across Vanguard, 12 faster than a solar storm. An alien had eaten human food and survived. Not only survived, he wanted more. Inside the ship cafeteria, terrified crew members whispered nervously while staring at the closed kitchen doors. Some believed Technician Rel had become infected. Others believed humans used mind control chemicals inside their meals. A few even claimed Earth food was an illegal military experiment. But one thing was certain. Nobody looked at humans the same way anymore. Ethan Cole walked through the ship corridors while crew members quickly moved out of his path. Some stared at him with fear, others with curiosity. One small alien child pointed at Ethan and whispered loudly to his mother, "That's the poison eater." Ethan sighed deeply. "Great." Behind him, Commander Vex Tau followed silently with 2 guards. The commander no longer treated Ethan like a prisoner, but security still watched him every second. Ethan glanced sideways. "You know I'm not escaping, right?" "That is not my concern," Vex answered calmly. "Then why the guards?" The commander remained silent for several seconds. Finally, he replied quietly, "Because some crew members now believe humans are bioweapons." Ethan laughed once. "Over sandwiches. You do not understand galactic history," Vex said. Ethan looked at him carefully. "Then explain it." The commander stopped, walking near a large observation window. Outside, endless stars stretched across space like frozen diamonds. For the first time, Vex removed his helmet slowly. His gray face looked tired. "Thousands of years ago," he said quietly, "the galaxy nearly died because of biological warfare." Ethan stayed silent. Entire planets were poisoned. Species vanished. Air itself became deadly. Vex looked directly at Ethan. "Since then, every advanced civilization banned dangerous chemical mixtures." Ethan frowned slightly. "You mean spices?" "To us," Vex replied seriously, "your food resembles engineered toxins." Ethan crossed his arms. "So humans accidentally scare the whole galaxy because we know how to cook?" "You also consume substances used elsewhere as industrial cleaners." "Fair point." For the first time, Commander Vex almost smiled. Almost. But before he could speak again, emergency alarms suddenly echoed through the corridor. Security alert. Unauthorized access detected. Vex instantly activated his armor systems. Location? A robotic voice answered immediately. Medical laboratory. Deck 7. Ethan blinked. My sandwich. Vex looked deadly serious. Someone is trying to steal it. Minutes later, security teams stormed into the medical wing. Scientists shouted nervously, while drones floated everywhere scanning the area. Inside the laboratory, the sealed container holding Ethan's lunchbox sat broken open. Empty. Dr. Cyril looked furious. It was here 10 minutes ago. Commander Vex immediately turned toward his guards. Seal every exit. Ethan rubbed his forehead. I cannot believe someone stole my lunch. But then he noticed something strange. The security lock on the container had not been forced open. It had been hacked professionally. Vex noticed it too. This was planned. Dr. Cyril looked pale. Who would risk exposure to human food? Nobody answered. Then suddenly, one terrified scientist pointed toward a nearby monitor. Commander, security footage appeared on the screen. A hooded figure, wearing cargo worker clothing, entered the lab earlier during the shift change. The person disabled cameras, unlocked the container, and carefully removed the sandwich samples. But before leaving, the figure paused, then looked directly into the camera. Even through the hood, glowing yellow eyes became visible. Commander Vex stiffened instantly. That is impossible. Ethan looked confused. What? Vex lowered his voice. Those eyes belong to the Carrot Syndicate. Dr. Cyril gasped. The black market smugglers? The largest criminal network in this sector, Vex replied. Ethan frowned. Why would criminals want human food? Nobody answered immediately. Then Dr. Cyril slowly looked toward Ethan. What if they believe human food can be weaponized? Silence filled the room. Ethan suddenly realized how dangerous this situation had become. To him, it was only lunch. But to the rest of the galaxy, human cooking looked like chemical warfare. Commander Vex activated his communicator. All security teams prepare for armed response. Ethan blinked. Armed response? Over sandwiches. Vex looked directly at him. You are still not understanding the situation. The commander stepped closer. If criminals learn how human biology survives these compounds, he paused, they could sell Earth food as military weapons. Far above the medical decks, hidden inside an abandoned cargo bay, dark figures gathered around a metal table. 3 members of the Carrot Syndicate stood silently while sealed containers rested before them. Inside the containers sat pieces of Ethan's homemade sandwich. One figure slowly opened a scanner. Chemical readings instantly flooded the screen. The criminals exchanged nervous looks. Incredible, one whispered. Acidic compounds. Fermented organisms. Heat-treated proteins. Another smuggler looked disturbed. No species should survive this. A taller figure stepped forward from the shadows. Unlike the others, he looked calm, interested. His name was Draxvar, leader of the Carrot Syndicate. He stared carefully at the sandwich sample. Then he asked quietly, And the human consumes as willingly? Yes. Drax smiled slowly. Then humans are far stronger than intelligence reports claimed. One smuggler looked uncertain. What do we do with it? Drax's smile widened. We study it. He pointed toward the sandwich. If humans can survive substances deadly to most species. His yellow eyes darkened. Imagine what else their bodies can survive. Back in the medical wing, Ethan sat alone with Dr. Cyril while security teams searched the ship. The doctor looked deeply worried. You should never have brought homemade food aboard. Ethan leaned back in frustration. It's a sandwich, not a bomb. To this galaxy, she whispered, there may be no difference. Before Ethan could answer, the room lights suddenly flickered, then went dark. Emergency power activated seconds later. Red warning lights filled the room again. Commander Vex's voice exploded through the intercom. All crew report to safe zones. Security breach detected. Then came the final message. The message that made Ethan's blood run cold. The Carrot Syndicate has taken control of Cargo Deck 3. Gunfire suddenly echoed somewhere deep inside the ship. Aliens screamed in distant corridors. Dr. Syrah stepped backward in fear. Ethan slowly stood up. What do they want? The intercom became silent for one long second. Then Commander Vex answered quietly. They are demanding the human. Outside the medical chamber, heavy footsteps thundered through the corridor. Someone was coming, fast. And whatever happened next, the entire ship was about to learn that humans were dangerous for far more reasons than food. Red emergency lights flashed across every corridor of Vanguard. 12. The peaceful cargo ship had become a battlefield. Crew members rushed to the halls in panic, while security drones flew overhead. Metal doors slammed shut across different sections of the ship. Somewhere far below, gunfire echoed to the cargo decks like distant thunder. Inside the medical chamber, Ethan Cole stood near the glass wall, listening carefully. Heavy footsteps moved closer. Fast. Dr. Syrah looked terrified. They found this section already. Ethan turned toward her calmly. Is there another exit? She quickly shook her head. The medical wing only has one main corridor. Outside the chamber, armed security guards suddenly appeared around the corner. Commander Vex Tau marched beside them with his weapon already drawn. His voice exploded through the intercom. Open the chamber immediately. The doors unlocked seconds later. Vex entered fast. Both of you move now. Ethan frowned. You've finally decided I'm important? This is not humor time, human. The commander looked genuinely angry for the first time. The syndicate killed 4 guards trying to reach this level. Dr. Syrah covered her mouth quietly. Ethan's face became serious. All this for food? Vex grabbed Ethan's arm roughly and pulled him into the hallway. No, the commander replied darkly. For you? The group moved quickly through narrow maintenance corridors hidden behind the ship walls. Pipes hissed above them while emergency sirens echoed in every direction. Dr. Syrah struggled to keep up. What exactly does the syndicate want with humans? Commander Vex answered while checking the corners carefully. The Kareth syndicate sells weapons, soldiers, illegal technology, anything valuable. Ethan crossed his arms while walking. And now they want chefs? Vex ignored the joke. Your biology survived compounds considered deadly across known space. So, the commander suddenly stopped walking. So, if humans naturally resist toxins, his eyes narrowed, then humans may also resist chemical warfare. Ethan's smile disappeared slowly. Now he understood. The galaxy feared human food because alien species had weak biological systems compared to Earth life. Earth itself was dangerous. Bacteria, spices, alcohol, fermented food, acidic fruits. Humans consumed all of it daily. To aliens, humans were basically poison-resistant monsters. Dr. Syrah looked at Ethan carefully. Is it true humans drink ethanol for enjoyment? Ethan coughed awkwardly. Sometimes. The doctor looked horrified again. Commander Vex muttered quietly. Unbelievable species. Suddenly, boom. The entire corridor shook violently. The lights flickered again. A nearby blast door exploded inward. Smoke filled the hallway instantly. Security guards raised their weapons. Dark armored figures rushed through the smoke. Kareth Syndicate, one guard shouted. Blaster fire exploded everywhere. Blue energy bolts slammed into the walls. One guard fell instantly. Dr. Syrah screamed and ducked behind a pipe. Commander Vex fired back with deadly accuracy. Move, he roared at Ethan. But Ethan did not move. Instead, he grabbed a loose metal tool from the floor just as one syndicate attacker charged through the smoke. The alien pirate raised his weapon. Too slow. Ethan slammed the heavy tool directly into the attacker's face. Crack! The pirate crashed sideways into the wall unconscious. Everything became silent for one shock second. Even Commander Vex stared at Ethan. What? Ethan looked confused. He was attacking us. Another pirate rushed forward. This time, Ethan punched him directly in the chest. The alien flew backward across the corridor. Dr. Syrah's eyes widened completely. That force should have shattered your hand. Ethan shook his fist once. Hurt a little. Commander Vex suddenly understood something terrifying. Human strength. Galactic reports describe humans as physically average. Those reports were wrong. Very wrong. Earth gravity was far stronger than most civilized worlds. Humans evolved under brutal conditions. To many alien species, a normal human was dangerously powerful. "Fall back!" The remaining pirates shouted nervously. But before they escaped, Ethan grabbed one by the armor. The pirate froze in fear. Ethan stared at him. "Why are you after me?" The pirate looked terrified now. You are worth millions." Ethan blinked. "What?" "The Syndicate wants human biology," the pirate whispered. "Your blood, your resistance, your immune system." Commander Vex knocked the pirate unconscious before he could continue. Then he turned toward Ethan slowly. "You were never the target because of the food." Ethan's stomach tightened. "They want to experiment on humans." Far above the battle, inside Cargo Deck 3, Draxvar watched security footage silently. The screen replayed Ethan fighting the Syndicate soldiers again and again. A slow smile crossed Drax's face. Incredible. One smuggler beside him looked nervous. He defeated trained fighters without armor. Drax nodded. Human muscles are denser, bone structure stronger, faster reaction speed. Another smuggler swallowed hard. "You think the rumors are true?" Drax looked toward the stolen sandwich samples on the table. "If humans survive toxic food daily," he smiled wider, "then their bodies are the greatest biological treasure in the galaxy." An alarm suddenly beeped beside him. "Commander!" a pirate reported nervously. "Security forces are pushing us back." Drax remained calm. "Then activate the gas." The pirate hesitated. "But the concentration is lethal." Drax's yellow eyes darkened. "Exactly." Back inside the maintenance corridors, Commander Vex led Ethan and Dr. Sira toward the emergency shuttle bay. "We can evacuate you to the nearest station," Vex explained. Ethan frowned. "And leave the crew here?" "The Syndicate only wants humans, which means everyone else dies after I leave." Vex stayed silent, because both of them knew it was true. Suddenly, white gas exploded from nearby air vents. Dr. Sira instantly collapsed coughing. Security guards dropped beside her seconds later. Commander Vex covered his mouth. "Neurotoxin." The commander activated an emergency mask from his armor, but Ethan remained standing, completely unaffected. The gas surrounded him heavily. Nothing happened. Ethan looked around in confusion. Why is everyone on the floor? Commander Vex stared at him in disbelief. The toxin was military grade. One breath could kill most species. Yet the humans still stood there normally. Dr. Sira weakly looked upward through blurry eyes. "How are you alive?" Ethan sniffed the air once. "Smells weird." Commander Vex slowly lowered his weapon. At that moment, the terrifying truth finally became clear. Humans were not simply resistant. Human biology itself was a nightmare for the galaxy. Then heavy footsteps echoed through the smoke. Draxvar finally appeared at the end of the corridor, surrounded by armed Syndicate soldiers. The crime lord looked directly at Ethan, not with fear, not with hatred, but with excitement. "Remarkable," Drax whispered. Then he smiled slowly. "The human survives." The white toxic gas continued spreading through the corridor. Alien guards collapsed one after another. Dr. Sira struggled to breathe while lying against the wall. Commander Vex remained standing only because of his emergency mask, but even he looked weak. Only Ethan Cole stood normally inside the deadly cloud, like the poison meant nothing. At the far end of the corridor, Draxvar smiled slowly. The Syndicate soldiers behind him looked nervous now, not because of Commander Vex, not because of the security guards, because of the human. Drax stepped forward carefully while the gas moved around him. "You truly are extraordinary," he said softly. Ethan crossed his arms. "You know, most people say hello first." Nobody laughed. Drax stopped only a few meters away. "For years the galaxy believed humans were physically weak newcomers," he said. "Primitive, emotional, undisciplined." His glowing yellow eyes narrowed. "But your species evolved on a death world." The corridor became silent. Commander Vex slowly looked toward Ethan. "Death world?" Drax nodded. "Yes." He activated a small holographic screen from his wrist. Images of Earth appeared above his hand. Massive oceans, violent storms, dangerous animals, volcanoes, frozen wastelands, deadly jungles. Earth contains millions of lethal life forms, Drax explained calmly. Predators, venom, disease, extreme gravity, toxic plants, violent weather. Dr. Sira stared weakly at the images. No civilized species could survive there. But humans did, Drax whispered. Ethan frowned slightly. He had never thought about Earth this way before. To him, Earth was normal. Home. Drax pointed toward Ethan's lunchbox, still attached to one pirate's belt. Even your food evolved from biological warfare against weaker organisms. Ethan sighed. It's literally roast beef. To the galaxy, Drax replied. It is poison wrapped in bread. Several Syndicate soldiers shifted nervously. One pirate quietly asked, Commander, are humans all like this? Drax smiled darkly. That is exactly why we need him alive. Commander Vex raised his weapon immediately. You will not take the human. Drax looked almost amused. You still believe this is about food? The crime lord stepped closer. It is about the future of the galaxy. His voice lowered. Human biology could create perfect soldiers. Dr. Sira's eyes widened. No. Poison resistance. Disease immunity. High gravity muscle density. Fast healing. Drax stared directly at Ethan. Your species is worth more than entire planets. Ethan's face hardened. I'm not joining your science project. Drax sighed softly. You misunderstand. Then his expression became cold. You do not have a choice. Suddenly, every Syndicate soldier raised their weapons. Commander Vex prepared to fire, but Ethan slowly stepped in front of him. The commander blinked. What are you doing? Ethan cracked his neck once. Honestly, a small smile appeared on his face. I'm getting tired of being hunted over sandwiches. Before anyone could react, Ethan moved, fast, faster than alien eyes could properly follow. He grabbed the nearest pirate and slammed him into the wall instantly. Crash! The metal hallway shook violently. Another pirate fired his blaster. Ethan ducked under the energy bolt and punched the attacker directly into two others. The three aliens crashed backward like fallen machines. Commander Vex stared in disbelief. Human combat records have been heavily restricted in galactic databases. Now he understood why. Humans were terrifying at close range. One Syndicate soldier pulled out an electric stun blade and charged forward screaming. Ethan caught the alien's wrist mid-attack, then bent the weapon sideways with pure force. The pirate froze. So, Ethan said calmly, bad day, huh? Then he threw the attacker across the corridor. Dr. Sira watched the battle in complete shock. Every movement from Ethan looked brutal, efficient, natural, not like trained military combat, like survival itself, as if humans were born fighting dangerous things. Draxvar did not look afraid. Instead, he looked fascinated. Incredible, he whispered. A pirate beside him panicked. We cannot stop him. Drax finally activated his own weapon. A heavy plasma rifle unfolded from his armor. Then we adapt. He aimed directly at Ethan. Boom! The plasma blast exploded through the corridor. Commander Vex shouted a warning. Too late. The shot struck Ethan in the shoulder and threw him backward into the wall. Dr. Sira screamed. Smoke filled the air. Everyone froze. Slowly, Ethan stood back up, alive. His shirt burned badly near the shoulder, revealing red, damaged skin underneath. But he was still standing, still conscious, still angry. The entire corridor went silent. One Syndicate soldier whispered fearfully, That shot kills armored troops. Ethan looked down at the wound, then back at Drax. Ow! Commander Vex could barely believe what he was seeing. Human durability was far beyond anything in official reports. Drax slowly lowered his weapon. Now even he looked disturbed. Remarkable. Ethan rolled his shoulder painfully. Okay, he muttered. Now I'm definitely mad. The pirates actually stepped backward. Fear finally appeared in their eyes. For the first time, they no longer saw Ethan as prey. They saw a predator. Suddenly, alarms exploded across the ship again. Warning. External ships approaching. Commander Vex activated his communicator instantly. Report. A terrified officer answered through static. "Commander, Galactic Patrol has arrived." Drax's expression darkened immediately. "How?" Then everyone heard a new voice echo through the corridor speakers. "Cold, powerful, official. This is Admiral Serac of the Galactic Defense Fleet. All Syndicate forces aboard Vanguard. 12 are ordered to surrender immediately." Drax cursed quietly, but the voice continued, "And release the human." Ethan blinked. Why does everyone suddenly care about humans? No one answered. Then Admiral Serac spoke again, this time slower, more serious. "Recent scans confirm humanity has been incorrectly classified for over 2 centuries. Commander Vex looked stunned. Dr. Sira stared at the speakers. Even Drax listened carefully now. The Admiral's next words changed everything. Earth is officially being reclassified as a Category 9 death world. Silence filled the corridor. Then came the final announcement. Effective immediately, humanity is no longer considered a minor species. Ethan frowned slightly. What does that mean? Commander Vex answered quietly without taking his eyes off Ethan. It means the galaxy finally realized how dangerous humans truly are. And deep inside the ship, every alien suddenly began looking at humanity very differently. Not as strange newcomers, not as weak civilians, but as survivors from one of the deadliest worlds ever discovered. The corridor remained silent after Admiral Serac's announcement. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Only the flashing red emergency lights continued glowing across the metal walls of Vanguard 12. Earth had been reclassified as a Category 9 death world. For most species, that sentence meant only one thing. Humans were no longer considered ordinary beings. They were survivors of hell. Commander Vex slowly lowered his weapon while staring at Ethan Cole with completely new eyes. Not fear, respect, real respect. Dr. Sira still looked shocked. A Category 9 world, she whispered weakly. That level is almost forbidden. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. It's really not that bad. Every alien in the corridor turned toward him instantly. Ethan shrugged. Okay, maybe Australia is a little bad. Nobody understood the joke. At the far end of the hallway, Drax Var's face darkened with frustration. The Syndicate leader realized the situation had changed completely. If Galactic Defense Fleet forces boarded the ship now, escape would become impossible. But Drax still looked at Ethan like a starving man staring at treasure. Imagine it, Drax said quietly. An army of humans under my control. Ethan sighed loudly. You really need a new hobby. Drax ignored him. Human soldiers immune to toxins, resistant to pain, strong enough to overpower trained warriors. His eyes narrowed. The galaxy would kneel before us. Commander Vex stepped forward immediately. The galaxy will never allow you near humanity. Drax smiled coldly. Too late. Then suddenly, the entire ship shook violently. Warning alarms screamed again. Warning. Engine failure detected. Reactor instability rising. Dr. Sira's face turned pale. No! A security officer's terrified voice echoed through the speakers. The Syndicate damaged the engine core during the attack. Commander Vex cursed quietly. If the reactor collapses, the ship explodes, Ethan finished. Everyone became silent. Vanguard, 12 carried over 4,000 crew members. If the engines failed completely, nobody would escape in time. Drax slowly stepped backward toward his remaining soldiers. We are leaving. Commander Vex raised his weapon again. You are not escaping. Drax smiled slightly. You have bigger problems now, Commander. Then the Syndicate forces disappeared into the smoke-filled corridors. Security teams rushed after them immediately. But Ethan stayed still. His eyes focused on the flashing reactor warnings across the walls. How long before the core blows? Commander Vex checked his scanner. 12 minutes. Dr. Sira looked horrified. The reactor chamber is flooded with radiation. Nobody can enter safely. Ethan looked toward the commander. What happens if nobody shuts it down? Vex answered honestly. Everyone dies. The corridor became quiet again. Then Ethan slowly rolled up his sleeves. Well, he said calmly, guess I'm going to the reactor. Dr. Sira stared at him. That radiation level will kill you. Ethan shrugged slightly. Maybe. Commander Vex stepped directly in front of him. No. Ethan blinked. No. You are now considered a protected galactic species. Vex said firmly. I will not send you to your death. Ethan looked around at the burning emergency lights. At least 4,000 people are trapped on this ship. The commander stayed silent. Ethan smiled weakly. Humans are stubborn, remember? Before anyone could stop him, Ethan turned and sprinted down the corridor toward the reactor decks. Commander Vex cursed loudly and followed. The reactor chamber looked like the inside of a dying star. Sparks exploded from broken machines. Radiation alarms screamed endlessly. The giant reactor core glowed unstable blue in the center of the room, while smoke filled the air. Dead security drones covered the floor. Ethan coughed once as he entered. Well, he muttered, this looks bad. Commander Vex arrived seconds later. Even with armor protection, warning signals flashed across his visor instantly. Radiation exposure critical. Dr. Sira's voice echoed through their communicators. The manual cooling system must be restarted physically. Vex checked the reactor controls. The release valves are jammed. Ethan walked toward the burning machinery. Then we unjam them. The commander grabbed his arm. You do not understand this technology. Ethan looked at the giant overheated metal lever near the core. You don't understand human engineering. The heat inside the chamber became unbearable. Even Vex struggled to stand close to the reactor. But Ethan forced himself forward step by step. Sweat rolled down his face. Warning lights reflected in his eyes. Human, Vex warned. Your body cannot survive this forever. Ethan placed both hands onto the massive emergency lever. Good thing forever isn't the plan. Then he pulled. Nothing happened. The lever remained stuck. Ethan gritted his teeth harder. Muscles tightened across his arms and shoulders. Mel screamed loudly. Commander Vex's eyes widened. The human was bending reinforced reactor steel. Slowly, painfully, the lever moved. The reactor core instantly flashed brighter. Dr. Sira shouted through the communicator. It's working! But then the cooling pipes exploded nearby. A wave of burning steam slammed directly into Ethan. Commander Vex rushed forward. Ethan! The human crashed onto the floor hard. For one terrible second, he did not move. Then slowly, Ethan pushed himself back up, bruised, burned, bleeding slightly, but still standing. Commander Vex stared at him in complete disbelief. No alien should survive that. Ethan coughed painfully. Okay, that one hurt. Then with one final roar, he pulled the lever completely downward. Clang! The entire reactor chamber shook violently. Cooling systems activated instantly. Blue energy faded slowly back to stable levels. One by one, the emergency alarms finally stopped. Silence. Complete silence. The ship was safe. Across every deck of Vanguard 12, terrified crew members looked upward as normal lights returned. They were alive because of one human. 3 days later, the damaged cargo ship rested safely beside a galactic defense station. News about Ethan Cole had already spread across nearby systems. The human who survived poison gas. The human who fought syndicate soldiers barehanded. The human who walked through deadly radiation to save thousands. Inside the station cafeteria, aliens secretly watched Ethan from nearby tables. But this time, nobody looked afraid. They looked amazed. Commander Vex entered carrying a small food container. He placed it carefully in front of Ethan. The human looked surprised. What's this? Vex cleared his throat awkwardly. Our chefs attempted to recreate human sandwiches. Ethan opened the container slowly. Inside sat the saddest sandwich he had ever seen. Dry bread, cold vegetables. Too much sauce. Way too much sauce. Ethan burst out laughing. Commander Vex looked uncomfortable. It is not correct? Ethan smiled warmly. It's terrible. The commander looked disappointed. Then Ethan picked up half the sandwich and handed it toward Vex. But that's okay. Vex hesitated. The entire cafeteria watched silently. Slowly, the commander took a bite. His eyes widened immediately. Then, for the first time in his life, Commander Vex Tau smiled. And across the galaxy, humanity's reputation began to change forever. Not because humans were monsters, not because humans survived deadly worlds, but because even in a galaxy filled with fear, humans still shared their lunch.